Okay, hi, my name's Hanna Aboueid. I'm going to Brown this year. I still haven't actually gone, but yeah, hopefully that'll happen in the spring. I am 18. I'm a first gen student, and I'm also low income. I actually wanted to talk a little more about my first generation status. Wait, first of all, can everyone hear me? Because this might be a little. Okay, good. Um, so so my first generation status actually changed based off of what university I was applying to, and it was a little confusing for me, so I thought I'd like talk about it a little bit. So the formal definition of a first generation college student is a student whose parents didn't complete a 4-year college degree. But for example, at Brown, when I applied, they said that if your parents didn't attend a university in a like in an education system that is similar to the US's, then you counted as a first generation student. So I think that like obviously like take the time to like look into that. And also they give you like, a lot of universities give you the chance to like assess your own situation and figure out whether you had the advantages that come with not being a first generation student. So yeah. Scholarships. So my tuition was pretty much covered by Brown's need-based scholarship, but I did also get the Jenny Stackhouse Eardley Memorial Scholarship, which covered money for any academic supplies that I needed. Okay. Oh crap, I don't know if it actually moved. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, my stats, I guess quickly, my SAT scores, I got a 1420, and then I did take the SAT twos, but in general, my SAT scores, I don't think were very impressive. So I mean, not like not impressive, but like I don't think that that's why. Um, I don't think my stats were maybe what set me apart, is what I'm trying to say. Um, I took 4 AP tests, got 3 5s, 1 4. Important extracurriculars, I did. So I was really lucky. I was lucky enough to. I live in like a small town, and does anyone? I don't know if anyone knows Bucknell University, but it's like it was pretty much like in the center of my town, and we had this program going on where like the top 10% of the class of the student body could apply to take courses there. So I was pretty familiar with the Bucknell campus, so that's definitely a point of advantage that I had, I guess. So I actually emailed one of the, because I was really interested in neuroscience, so I emailed one of the neuroscience professors there that had written a really interesting paper on like alcoholism, I think it was. So I emailed her and I asked her if I could help with her research at any point during the school year. And she said yes, which was great. So that's definitely something, which I guess like leads me, I wanted to also say that like I didn't feel like there were many options available for me when it came to extracurriculars that I was actually uh, interested in, I guess, at my school. So I think the what I would recommend doing is trying to create some of those opportunities for yourself if you can. Obviously, like this is a very this isn't probably a situation that a lot of people are in where you have like university in your backyard, but like if you have anything of the sort, like any organization, headquarters or whatever, like I don't know, just like try to reach out and yeah. So I was also on the organizational team for the PA Young Women in Physics conference. I did the Pioneer Academics Research Program, which I also recommend very highly. That's like super cool. So you can just like look it out. It also offers like full scholarships, so don't have to worry about like tuition coverage. And yeah, it's really good for anyone who's also looking to go into STEM. Um, yeah, I helped out with, or I mean, not helped out. I guess I volunteered with the PA Immigration and Citizenship Coalition, and I was also a campaign organizer for one of our state representatives. Notable classes, I did take a bunch of AP classes. So when I was like shaping my when I was shaping my application, I tried to like focus on or like highlight some of like the like trends, I guess. So two of the like main like majors that I was thinking of when I was applying were neuroscience and also law. So I tried to like pick out the classes and courses that like would highlight those like academic achievements, so or academic interests. And yeah, so when it came to like AP classes, I mentioned like chem, psych, bio, and like AP Gov and stuff like that. Like I emphasize those a lot more. So I also, again, I was really privileged and I was able to take classes at Bucknell. I took a poli-sci course on citizenship and immigration. I took a philosophy course, which was also really cool. And I took a linguistics course, language disorders. I think that definitely helped me stand out. Okay, so applying to Brown, I did apply using the Common App. I did like a kind of weird thing, I guess, where I started off the application process in August, and I started it off through QuestBridge, and then I became a QuestBridge finalist, and I guess I kind of chickened out of the whole match process, and I just like removed myself, I guess, and I decided to apply early action, a couple places, yeah, and then I decided when I applied to Brown, it was regular decision, so I just did it through the Common App instead of through QuestBridge. So I started writing my essays again in August/September because I was doing QuestBridge originally, and I did use a lot of those essays for my Brown application. What are some prompts you chose, and what did you write for them? So one of the prompts that I really liked, and I thought like I guess like I liked writing about it, was the if you could meet a character from a book or historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask them? So I chose to write about my grandma because sorry if I'm talking too fast. God, okay. So I chose to write about my grandmother because she decided to immigrate to the U.S. Well, she didn't decide. I guess it was kind of a hard process, but yeah, she decided to immigrate to the U.S. when she was when my mom was like 18, and like that was like a really big decision for her. And I guess I just like wrote this like little paragraph or two about how being in a culture that wasn't her own, like thrown into a society that kind of like isolated her, and with like without the same skill level when it came to language, without family, like how like hard that must have been for her, and how I grew up like knowing a different version of her than like my relatives, my older relatives, like I guess talk about. Like they would always be like, oh yeah, she's so outgoing, and like that wasn't the case when she was like when like the way that I grew up with her most of the time. We were in the U.S. and she didn't really have that kind of community to be able to comfortably display her personality, I guess. So I talked about that. Yeah, and I said the question that I would ask is whether she would do it all again, as in like choose to immigrate. Please briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities. For that prompt, I wrote about my younger brothers and how they had, being like English second language students, they had a lot of like difficulties when it came to like learning on the same level as the students their age. In my school in the U.S., we go to like we're like in a really white rural area, so it was kind of hard for them not being as fluent in English as the rest of their peers. And so I wrote about that because one of my extracurricular activities was this club that I started at the school called Global Minds, and that it pretty much what we did with it was we were trying to set up some sort of like barrier reducing like language program where we would set up an English second language student with a bilingual student who would like a mentor who would help them through the process. So how did you decide to choose what to write for your essays? So I mainly just kind of like sat with myself and tried to like pinpoint exactly why I wanted to get into whatever college I was applying to. When it came to like places like Brown and like when it came to like the more prestigious colleges, I guess, when it like when I recognized that I was like, oh, this I'm probably doing this for the name. I talked a lot about how I thought that that was a pretty valid reason to do it, because coming from a place where I don't feel like I have much of a voice within my own society, like the American society, and I, as a for again like a low income student, a woman, a person of color, I felt, and a Muslim, so like there's just a lot that I growing up I felt like was I guess not I didn't feel like I had the same ability, I guess, to succeed, or at least like that the society I was living in didn't want me to as much. So I talked about, for my Common App essay, I did talk a lot about how um, my like my like reasoning for wanting to go to college was mainly so that I can like gain a platform that I would then be able to like redistribute, yeah, to like and kind of like help my community. So like everybody else, obviously, because that's like a really like martyr like situation. But I just like talked about how there needed to be a redistribution of power. So which prompt was the hardest for me to write? Oof. So all the ones where they were like, oh, why this specific university or college? Those always stressed me out so much because I just couldn't figure out a way to make them seem like sincere and really original, which is why I really appreciated how Brown didn't ask us to do that, which I was like, yay. But I know that for those, like, I just felt like I was being really, like, I did, I guess, make a unique-ish like answer response to that, but it still felt like forced, because I did apply like 22 colleges, so there's no way every single one of them was like, whew, yeah, this is the one I want to go to. So it always felt like I was like not being very honest, and I didn't like doing that in my essays because it like felt like I was straining, I guess. Which prompt did you feel allowed you to express yourself the best? Definitely the Common App. I just like, so yeah, for my Common App, I wrote a letter to my missing loved ones. That's like literally what it was addressed to, addressed as, or whatever. And like I used like an excerpt from a poem in there. Like I did whatever the heck I wanted, which was really nice. Oh, did someone say something? I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I really liked the Common App and how open-ended it was because I felt like I could like format it however I wanted to. Did anyone help you with writing your essays? Yes, like 2 or 3 people. My main help came from my College Point advisor, which is a program that I really would also recommend. So like if anyone's taking notes or like screenshotting or whatever, like please check this out. It's also completely free. You just like have to give them your information, and I think you have to, I guess it's kind of an application process, but I don't think it's very selective. Like they're very willing to help. And my College Point advisor was really cool, and she definitely helped me a lot through the process. So also my sister and one of my friends. How soon or late did you finish? Oh gosh, it was always right up to the deadline. It was so stressful. I would like, it would be like 2 minutes before the deadline I'd hand it in. So like, don't do that. That was a really bad move on my part, but I'm like a master procrastinator. So not like a good master, like bad. That was bad. Okay, so tips and advice. So get eyes on your essays, even if you hate your writing, because I know like that was a really big no for me. I guess I really hated having people read my essays because like especially like when it when I wasn't like, I because you're never like fully satisfied with your writing. At least I never was. So I just like get people to read it. Okay. I found it hard to write about myself in the beginning, so I wrote in the third person and then I worked from there. So I guess if other people had that kind of problem, that's a place to start. I would also recommend like just word vomiting and then trying to clean it up, because if you're just like focused on like getting the perfect attention grabber, and the perfect like, I don't know, like start to your essay, like you're just never going to get through it. Make sure there's a definite structure, a theme that weaves through the essay. This is also something that my College Point advisor was like really picky about. I remember like I would sometimes have this vague idea of like what I wanted to say or like what I wanted to present to the person reading my essay, and it would like kind of like shine through, but it would also be a little bit all over the place. So she would always like really make a point of telling me that I needed to have a specific like structure, and I needed to know this point goes into this point and this point goes into this point. Not necessarily like, don't make it like uh robotic or like monotone, but just make sure that there's a clear like, this is what I'm trying to tell you, I guess. Don't make that vague. if that makes any sense. So yeah, I'd also recommend asking yourself, what are you trying to say about yourself and what do you want to say? Because that helped me a lot. Like I would think like, oh, this is something that's unique to me, I guess. And then I'd have to ask myself, okay, what am I trying, like, what does that say about me? What do I want it to say about me? And like, how do I express that? And then I would like work backwards from there. Okay, continued. I was really bad about this, as I just mentioned, but give your essays like time to, I don't know why I said marinate, but like, yeah. So the more you like let them sit and like you sit with them, the better they'll flow, the easier they'll be to read, the easier they'll be to understand. So it'll just be a much easier process if you have time to work with it. So leave yourself some time. If you're running low on time or you just like have no inspiration or like I do not know what to write about, I always look through my old writings, at least like some of the writings that I really like enjoyed writing. So maybe they were like academic papers or just like I have like this one Google Doc that's full of just like random pieces of writing that I've written over the years. So I just like looked through that and looked for inspiration. Yeah, and also reading out loud is very helpful when it comes to proof checking your writing. So recommend that as well, and which is going to be painful a bit. Sorry, 1 second. Why it's breaking. Okay. God, this is painful. Okay. um, Fight for your life. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as my 9-year-old body prepared to completely utilize its fight or flight response. The view from under the couch was too limited, the space too small, and as is common with the most giddily stressful moments of my life, I really needed to use the bathroom. While searching for a suitable weapon to utilize, I found myself fighting back one of the more primal reactions to this whole ludicrous situation: laughter. It definitely didn't help that my mother's voice, equipped with her signature Arabic lilt, was the one issuing the daunting command. Why my mom decided a full-on war of wills is her favorite family bonding exercise is well threatening enough to keep enemies at bay, yet decidedly non-lethal. Strewn across the living room floor, just out of arm's reach, I take a deep breath, hold it, and start inching out from under my master hiding spot. In a surge of movement the most skilled agent would have been impressed by, I grabbed the discarded pillow and rolled out from under the couch, only to be met by one of my younger sister's shrill screams of terrific excitement. Mom is close then, too close. Turning on my sister in her time of need without a second, I wait for her to turn the corner, giggling the entire time, sending her tumbling to the ground. 1 down, 8 to go. These moments of chaotic spontaneity are what the Aboueid household has always deemed fun. The best activities we've come up with always the unconventional ones. When your family consists of 9 individuals frequently split along 2 continents, neither socially conservative enough to fully fit in with their family in each, nor Western enough to fit in what kind of becomes your middle name. Being fundamentally unconventional always came with its disadvantages. In Egypt, many of our friends and family see us as the ones that got away, the lucky ones who found a way out when they couldn't, and many resent us for it. In the US, our Arab, Muslim, low-income family, centered in the small town of Lewisburg, PA, was never acceptable, and my family has had to endure countless results. The amount of times my mom has had to practically wrestle my younger siblings' health insurance from our local assistance office, for example, is heartrending to say the least. On the flip side, though, as my dad sees it, when the society around you already expects less of you, or better yet, doesn't know what to expect, it's easier to resist negative societal pressure. If the world around me already expects me to be different, what am I losing if I actually am? With this mindset intact, my family's key statute has always been to to who we are, no matter the external pressure to be different, a willingness to question my own beliefs and form new ones, consistently breaking away from the more toxic beliefs that my conservative upbringing had attempted to instill in me from a young age, i.e. sexism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism. The overall weirdness and nonconformity that was my childhood has, as such, allowed me to be more aware of the toxicity around me, whether it exists within the Arab culture I was raised in or within the culture I've become privy to, and has given me, in the face of an ever-growing amount of silencers, raise my voice against these injustices. That is it. I hope like I wasn't going too fast. So I apologize if that's the case.
No, that was really awesome. Thank you for sharing. And this is Hannah's contact info if you ever want to reach out to her.
Okay, I guess this is my cue. So hi everyone, I'm Cynthia, and I'm currently a freshman at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. So I'm an international student, but I live in Hong Kong, and I graduated from high school in Hong Kong, but I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm a first generation college student, but it's in the sense that my parents, they didn't graduate from a typical 4 year college. They got like associate degrees from a conservatory. Um, I go to Georgetown on their need-based scholarship. It's around 46K, and I also have a government scholarship, but I can't really release the details of that. So, all right, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so my stats for my ACT, I scored a 35, luckily. Um, and in my important extracurriculars, so I was a teacher at a summer program called Summer Bridge. Um, it was for second language English students in um, Hong Kong. And basically, I designed my own curriculum. Um, would definitely recommend it. I think there's another project that's similar in San Francisco. So if you live in San Francisco, definitely do try it out. Um, but it was very fulfilling, like as experience for me because I'd never taught anyone before, and like the way it just influenced my views on education, that was a huge thing for me. Okay, and secondly, I was a brief intern for Aftab Piraval. I think he ran for Congress and kind of represented the first congressional district of Ohio. Um, and I guess like Ohio because I was visiting during the summer, and because Ohio is my that was where I was born. Um, my third extracurricular is head girl, and I think it probably is more of a UK thing because my school is more of a UK based school. Yeah, I don't know if you've read Harry Potter, but I think Percy Weasley, he's like head boy. It's kind of like the same thing. So it's just one of the branches in UK student government. But it's focused on like enforcing like discipline in school. And lastly, I was a club founder in my school of a community service club for improving literacy in underprivileged local Hong Kong youth. So I guess as you can see, like a lot of my extracurriculars were focused on like specifically literacy application towards. Um, okay, so my high school classes, I took higher level English literature A, mathematics, biology, and Chinese B. I also took a few AP exams, psychology, government, music theory, but those were self-studied. Okay, so my essay writing process, I started in early September. And so Georgetown has its own application, so it's not really on the Common App, which some might consider to be a hassle. So there are two general prompts that all students respond to in the Georgetown application. And then there's one prompt that's specific to the school that you're applying for. So I applied to the college, and the essay for that is different from the ones for the School of Foreign Service, or I think like the nursing school. So one of the general prompts is very similar to the Common App prompt, but the word limit is lower. But nevertheless, I just use the same. I use the same essay for both of them. Um, the first prompt was briefly discuss the significance to you of the school or summer activity in which you have been most involved. I discussed my time teaching at the summer program and what I learned from that experience, which I couldn't learn in school. And I tied it to my views on education policy in Hong Kong. The second prompt was, please submit a brief essay, either personal or creative, which you feel best describes you. So this is the one that's like most similar to the Common App, one of the Common App prompts, I guess. So for this one, I wrote about my name. So my surname is quite unique and a lot of people often write it wrong. So I wrote about that tendency. I wrote about my sort of unique upbringing because I was raised by two musicians, and I wrote about that time I messed up my piano performance, which basically was a huge deal to me because everyone in that room at the time knew that my parents were both pianists. Um, in my third prompt, basically they asked me, what does it mean to you to be educated, and how might Georgetown College help you achieve this aim? So first of all, I addressed my goals for my education, and then I talked about my views on education and how Georgetown's facilities and their classes, etc., would help me achieve those goals. I also talked about how Georgetown's philosophy resonated with my own philosophy, as well as my own experiences. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, okay, I think I've gone over this, but yeah, this is just a summary of what I wrote about for each prompt. All right, next slide. Yeah, okay. So it's listed as difficulties, but I guess it's just like my experience, I guess. I chose the content that I wrote about based on my extracurriculars and my unique upbringing, so I just kind of tailored it towards that direction. So I received some help from my university guidance counselor in school. So she would basically read like 1 to 3 drafts, but it was usually just one. And she would just give me some very general comments. And then I had like one friend that I really trusted to proofread it once, 2 days before the deadline. Um, I think one of the most difficult parts for me in the essay writing process was writing about myself. So prompt two, the one that's similar to the Common App one, because I don't really like to write about myself. It took me a whole month to kind of like finalize it and actually just come up with a draft that I could stomach. Even now, I just feel like really I just cringe at my old draft. Yeah, it's not great, honestly. Um, my favorite prompt. Oh, maybe it's better to move on to the next slide. I'm not. Okay, yeah. So some advice. I would say that brainstorming is like 90% of the entire process. I wrote the final draft of my essay, the one that I used within like 1 to 2 hours, but it took me a month to brainstorm like a brainstorm content that I could actually include in my essay. Sometimes you have to rewrite the entire essay. That is completely fine. I restructured my essay, took out like entire chunks, replaced them, even up to the last minute, and that's completely fine. That is normal. You might find it helpful to talk to people when you're brainstorming. So sometimes you might be talking to like people you really trust, I mean. So people who bring out parts of yourself. Um, Ideas really do come from conversations. You might suddenly get an idea, or you might say something, and then you think, oh, that's a perfect first line for my essay. Um, so my next piece of advice is research the school that you're applying to thoroughly. I difficult because teen schools in total. And when colleges would ask like, oh, why us, basically, it would be difficult, honestly, to do that for like all of your schools. But I think that it definitely helps. So go to the parts of the website that aren't really easy to find, like really dig into the website, I would say. Um, I so for example, Wellesley also asked me one of those questions, and I guess I just picked that one and then just kind of tied in like really specific things, and it worked. So um, there you go. Also, be specific. Go through every sentence of your essay and revise sentences where it sounds like anyone could have written it. This will actually help you cut down on word count, I would say, and this applies mostly to I think, the personal essay. Um, And next, start drafting early, but don't finalize the draft too early. So you often hear there are a lot of people like me who finish their draft like 2 days before the deadline or like a very short time before the deadline, and that is okay. Like, I honestly think it is better to finalize it later because sometimes inspiration strikes at the last minute, but you just have to be aware of the deadlines. That's all. Okay, and this last one, try to be humble in your essays. Try not to brag about your achievements. I kind of went the opposite way in my essays and just embarrassed myself, and somehow it worked. So take a down-to-earth approach, which I think that will work better. Okay, so now I'm going to read one of my essays. Um, I think it was the prompt where they asked me what my views on education were. It is a bit lengthy though, so okay, bear with me. Okay. To me, being educated entails an awareness of limited perspectives, an understanding of the fluidity of education, and an unending pursuit of holistic as well as intellectual values. I affirm that being educated is about connecting a person's identity with their academia and cultivating personal growth throughout the process. In order to become educated, I need to first develop an awareness of my limited knowledge and how narrow my perspectives currently are. Even though I study an international curriculum, I have not been able to explore a vast variety of worldviews through the medium of discourse. I am thus determined to continue exposing myself to multiple subject curricula and enable myself to access an unlimited variety of new perspectives at Georgetown College. It may range from religious to scientific perspectives, but all could be used in language and literature as it is the field that I am most interested in. I believe that studying computer science and math as a part of Georgetown's core curriculum, in addition to the creative writing minor, would assist my studies in English by allowing me to create contemporary poetry or works of fiction which stimulate personal expression, utilizing unconventional elements such as numbers and algorithms. Georgetown's education would be different from my current education in the sense that I would be able to build connections with people of influence who possess different cultural and social perceptions and have ambitions to traverse across different areas of knowledge. As I have currently not been able to participate in an intense discussion, I refuse to construct an inactive worldview by the lack of considering sufficient perspectives. I believe that my opinions should develop or become altered as I gain more perspective, and that I can find a place to develop them at Georgetown College's Land and Fellows program, as well as the included readings and talks series. The program would provide me with opportunities to talk to visiting writers as well as other individuals who share an adoration for literature. I wish to cultivate and discuss my ideas within a community made up of diverse but mutually accepting individuals, and I am determined to find this community in the Land Fellows program and make my contribution. I would like to be able to share ideas by transcending political and social boundaries, and I strongly believe that this protection of integrity enables freer expression and mutual empowerment. However, in the long term, I would like to be able to create these spaces for discussion and promote these same values of integrity in my personal life and in my future employment. Understanding that being educated is a fluid concept allows me to bear in mind that I should seek different experiences and refrain from limiting myself to one role. Being educated is different to a teacher as it is to a student, and even within each role, the idea of being educated changes over time. As a teacher, I've been educated more on picking up social cues, taking note of my students' interests, and applying them in my lesson practices. However, as a student, I've been educated on the ways that I can apply the course content to real life, as well as the fundamental ways of connecting subjects. However, my experiences in teaching are limited, so the Georgetown University Writing Center's peer tutoring service would give me the opportunity to be educated as a teacher and a student at the same time. Assisting peers in their writing process would also be a way for me to connect with students within Georgetown as well. Being educated means being open to change, and I am hoping but also expecting that my views on being educated might change years into the future. Realizing the fluidity of being educated has allowed me to see that there are unending possibilities to pursue new experiences. I have currently attempted to do so and would like to continue this approach. I would like to attend the fall symposiums, but also somewhat diverse events such as the Peace and Conflict Resolution Conference, and Georgetown hosts a rich variety of these events. Even though I plan to study English, I believe that the events regarding social justice hold equal value, as an understanding of society is part of the anthropological and moral discussions that educate me on how to utilize logic and rhetoric. I am willing to forego any preconceptions that I am currently holding, as it will hinder my journey to become educated, and I look forward to being challenged in my opinions at every step of the way. The Alternative Breaks program would allow me to achieve my aforementioned goal of creating spaces for discussion outside of Georgetown and in the greater community of Washington, D.C., as it provides many opportunities for me to explore as well as interact with people in the district. Being educated does not have to be limited to pure discussion, however, and it may also be in the form of creating art. Georgetown's orchestra and the Guild of Bands would also stimulate artistic conversations that I look forward to sharing and hearing about experiences in. As I have a background in classical music, I would like to extend my range of experience in music by exploring more contemporary areas and learning music through rehearsing, watching performances, and interacting with performers. I would like to find pieces of my identity in various areas and establish a genuine connection through drastically different experiences. Being in Washington, D.C. alone would allow me to broaden my horizons, as I would be living in a completely different area from a place such as Hong Kong. It would provide many opportunities for me to explore different facets of myself. However, I believe that Georgetown College would add value to my exploration and that I would be able to develop leadership and grow my appreciation of cultural diversity as I continue my academic pursuits, thereby becoming an educated individual. And that is my essay. I'm sorry if it was really long. So this is my contact information. You can contact me at both my Instagram and my email. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. And yeah, this is my presentation. Thank you for listening. Difficult because 18 schools in total. And when colleges would ask like, oh, why us, basically, it would be difficult, honestly, to do that for like all of your schools. But I think that it definitely helps. So go to the parts of the website that aren't really easy to find, like really dig into the website, I would say. Um, so for example, Wellesley also asked me one of those questions, and I guess I just picked that one and then just kind of tied in like really specific things, and it worked. So there you go. Also, be specific. Go through every sentence of your essay and revise sentences where it sounds like anyone could have written it. This will actually help you cut down on word count, I would say, and this applies mostly to I think the personal essay. And next, start drafting early, but don't finalize the draft too early. So you often hear there are a lot of people like me who finish their draft like 2 days before the deadline or like a very short time before the deadline, and that is okay. Like, I honestly think it is better to finalize it later because sometimes inspiration strikes at the last minute, but you just have to be aware of the deadlines. That's all. Okay, and this last one, try to be humble in your essays. Try not to brag about your achievements. I kind of went the opposite way in my essays and just embarrassed myself, and somehow it worked. So take a down-to-earth approach, which I think that will work better. Okay, so now I'm going to read one of my essays. I think it was the prompt where they asked me what my views on education were. It is a bit lengthy though, so okay, bear with me. Okay. To me, being educated entails an awareness of limited perspectives, an understanding of the fluidity of education, and an unending pursuit of holistic as well as intellectual values. I affirm that being educated is about connecting a person's identity with their academia and cultivating personal growth throughout the process. In order to become educated, I need to first develop an awareness of my limited knowledge and how narrow my perspectives currently are. Even though I study an international curriculum, I have not been able to explore a vast variety of worldviews through the medium of discourse. I am thus determined to continue exposing myself to multiple subject curricula and enable myself to access an unlimited variety of new perspectives at Georgetown College. It may range from religious to scientific perspectives, but all could be used in language and literature as it is the field that I'm most interested in. I believe that studying computer science and math as a part of Georgetown's core curriculum, in addition to the creative writing minor, would assist my studies in English by allowing me to create contemporary poetry or works of fiction which stimulate personal expression, utilizing unconventional elements such as numbers and algorithms. Georgetown's education would be different from my current education in the sense that I would be able to build connections with people of influence who possess different cultural and social perceptions and have ambitions to traverse across different areas of knowledge. As I've currently not been able to participate in intense discussion, I refuse to construct an inactive worldview by the lack of considering sufficient perspectives. I believe that my opinions should develop or become altered as I gain more perspective, and that I can find a place to develop them at Georgetown College's Lannan Fellows program, as well as the included readings and talks series. The program would provide me with opportunities to talk to visiting writers as well as other individuals who share an adoration for literature. I wish to cultivate and discuss my ideas within a community made up of diverse but mutually accepting individuals, and I am determined to find this community in the Lannan Fellows program and make my contribution. I would like to be able to share ideas by transcending political and social boundaries, and I strongly believe that this protection of integrity enables freer expression and mutual empowerment. However, in the long term, I would like to be able to create these spaces for discussion and promote these same values of integrity in my personal life and in my future employment. Understanding that being educated is a fluid concept allows me to bear in mind that I should seek different experiences and refrain from limiting myself to one role. Being educated is different to a teacher as it is to a student, and even within each role, the idea of being educated changes over time. As a teacher, I've been educated more on picking up social cues, taking note of my students' interests, and applying them in my lesson practices. However, as a student, I've been educated on the ways that I can apply the course content to real life, as well as the fundamental ways of connecting subjects. However, my experiences in teaching are limited, so the Georgetown University Writing Center's peer tutoring service would give me the opportunity to be educated as a teacher and a student at the same time. Assisting peers in their writing process would also be a way for me to connect with students within Georgetown as well. Being educated means being open to change, and I am hoping but also expecting that my views on being educated might change years into the future. Realizing the fluidity of being educated has allowed me to see that there are unending possibilities to pursue new experiences. I have currently attempted to do so and would like to continue this approach. I would like to attend the fall symposiums, but also somewhat diverse events such as the Peace and Conflict Resolution Conference, and Georgetown hosts a rich variety of these events. Even though I plan to study English, I believe that the events regarding social justice hold equal value, as an understanding of society is part of the anthropological and moral discussions that educate me on how to utilize logic and rhetoric. I am willing to forego any preconceptions that I am currently holding, as it will hinder my journey to become educated, and I look forward to being challenged in my opinions at every step of the way. The Alternative Breaks program would allow me to achieve my aforementioned goal of creating spaces for discussion outside of Georgetown and in the greater community of Washington, D.C., as it provides many opportunities for me to explore as well as interact with people in the district. Being educated does not have to be limited to pure discussion, however, and it may also be in the form of creating art. Georgetown's orchestra and the Guild of Bands would also stimulate artistic conversations that I look forward to sharing and hearing about experiences in. As I have a background in classical music, I would like to extend my range of experience in music by exploring more contemporary areas and learning music through rehearsing, watching performances, and interacting with performers. I would like to find pieces of my identity in various areas and establish a genuine connection through drastically different experiences. Being in Washington, D.C. alone would allow me to broaden my horizons, as I would be living in a completely different area from a place such as Hong Kong. It would provide many opportunities for me to explore different facets of myself. However, I believe that Georgetown College would add value to my exploration, and that I would be able to develop leadership and grow my appreciation of cultural diversity as I continue my academic pursuits, thereby becoming an educated individual. And that is my essay. I'm sorry if it was really long. So this is my contact information. You can contact me at both my Instagram and my email. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. And yeah, this is my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Hello, I'm Jennora. I just want to say thank you both to those beautiful presentations. I loved listening. But yeah, I am a Brown University first year. I'm 18. I'm from New York City. I'm also first generation low income, so first generation college student, and low income is self-explanatory. I'm also a Questbridge scholar, so I applied to like basically all my schools with the Questbridge application. I became a finalist and I did the match with only 2 schools. Didn't get matched, and then I applied with regular decision, and that's how I got into like the majority of my schools with Questbridge regular decision. And then I'm also a Gates Scholar. So that means I am the recipient of the Gates Scholarship. If you don't know what that means, it's basically like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation like funds like a scholarship for high achieving low income students. Very selective scholarship, but it's really worth it because it is a last dollar scholarship, which means that like whatever the college doesn't cover in financial aid, Gates will pay for it. So I'm very fortunate for that. And yeah, and also before I go on, I have birds, so if you hear them like chirping in the background, that's them. But yeah, next slide, please. Cool. Okay, so for my stats, so I decided not like against sharing stats in this presentation only because I'm like really strongly against like testing and standardized testing. I think it's not like a good representation of anyone's academic standing, in my opinion. I also think that like by sharing it, I might be contributing to the culture that is very competitive and comparative in terms of quantitative measurements. So yeah, so I decided against sharing stats, but I do want to encourage you all that like test scores aren't that important, especially in this pandemic, because the testing centers are literally getting closed down and everything. So just don't worry too much about that. I definitely think the bulk of the attention is going to be on extracurriculars and your writing. So definitely cater time to those aspects of your application. So in terms of extracurriculars, I only listed a few here. I've done a lot of extracurriculars, but mainly I think like I didn't have like a spike in my application. I know that means like a theme or like something that like makes your application cohesive or like cater to one specific topic. I was just interested in a lot of different things. I applied undecided to my colleges. So my extracurriculars kind of reflected that. So like, for example, I founded and led a poetry club. I was on a step team. I played volleyball. I also did like a music production internship and like recorded in a lot of studios for fun. I was a hospital intern and I shadowed surgeries, which was really cool. And I also did research at Mount Sinai in a program with zebrafish toxicology. So you can see it's like I did a lot of random things, but I love doing all of them. And I think that was really portrayed in my like undecided application with all these different interests. In terms of notable classes, so my school was an early college, so it didn't have AP classes, just college classes. It was like a kind of like a dual enrollment with Bard College, but like the professors were teaching at my school. So these are like my favorite classes that I took. So, poetry workshop, the biology of cancer, and criminal law through literature, best classes at my high school. So yeah, I just included that. I don't know if that was like a big factor in me getting accepted into colleges, like my notable classes, but I guess it does reflect like my interests in that I have a lot of different interests and I took a lot of courses that genuinely interested me. Okay, in terms of the essay writing process, so I started in the summer. Like I said, I applied through Questbridge, and like Hanna, the deadline is like pretty early, like in September, like late September. So I wrote both a Questbridge essay and a personal statement. Now this is interesting because a lot of people from Questbridge do use the same Questbridge essay for their common application. And what I did was I wrote a whole nother essay for the common application. And that's mostly because I knew that I kind of wanted to find ways to show more about myself. Like if there was more space, I could do so. Like if a college requested both the common application and the Questbridge application, I could share the Questbridge essay and a whole nother personal statement through the common application. And so that's what I did. But then I also shortened my Questbridge essay to fit the common application. And so for some colleges, I was like, maybe I should use my Questbridge essay for the common app, or like I had that flexibility to interchange and use different essays for different things, which was really cool. So yeah, I applied with both the Questbridge application and the common application, and I applied to 26 colleges, which like, that's a lot of colleges. So like, try to narrow down your college list if you don't want to do as many supplements and essays. But like, I had fee waivers, so I wasn't really losing much, but like my time and my mental energy. So I applied to 26 colleges, yes. So, and then in terms of the prompts, so obviously, like I said, I did the Questbridge essay and the Common App essay. For the Questbridge essay, there is a very specific prompt, and I summarized it here on the slide. Describe the challenges that have most influenced your personal successes and your growth from it. That's a very shortened version of the prompt. It's a little bit longer than that, but that's basically what it's asking, right? Like describe the context in which you've grown up, all those challenges, or one specific challenge, and how you've overcome those challenges. So for that essay, I wrote about my identity, which is a very broad topic, obviously, but I'm gonna explain like what exactly I wrote about that. So I wrote about how being Black American, like I didn't know exactly where I was from, origin-wise, like around globally. And so obviously like now, like I understand that that's mostly because of slavery, right? Like cut off connections and cultural connections through that. But at the time, I was really trying to understand it. I've never actually consciously thought about that and how it has affected me as I've grown up. So I used the Questbridge essay to really sort of write about that. Again, like I've never given so much attention to that idea or that aspect of myself. And so through writing an essay about that, I learned a lot about myself, but also the admissions officer can learn about me through me learning about myself. And so, yeah, I wrote about how I had to deal with that and how not really feeling like I had a culture or a belonging while everyone else around me had like a flag that they could represent. So I wrote about that and how I sought out different ways to kind of supplement that cultural lacking. And so I sought that out through empathy and through connecting with people. So I wrote about that and how I redefined culture and I redefined my identity, not necessarily with origin, but more so with all the experiences that make me who I am, and also my love for empathy and caring for people. And I ended that essay with actually a DNA test that I took afterwards, like closer to the deadline, I think. And I finally got the results, and I ended my essay with that, which is very like personal. So I don't know. Definitely like don't feel the pressure to exploit yourself for to get into a college. But I think that was something that was really personal to me, but I didn't mind sharing it because I felt like it was impactful in some way. So that's for my Questbridge essay. For my common application essay, I wrote about a conversation I had with someone. It didn't fall under any of the prompts, so I chose the topic of your choice prompt for the common app essay. I wrote about a conversation that I had coming home from a flying program on the train. And I really zoomed into that moment, and it was just this really nice person who asked me like, how do I define happiness? And it was just one of those conversations that like I will take with me forever. I decided to write about that and how it connected to my love for asking questions, especially existential questions. Like I literally wrote about me having like a notes app on my phone and like wherever I go, always writing down questions that I just think of randomly in my head. And so yeah, I connected that to my love for sociological thought and being like a critical thinker in the world. So that's what I wrote for my Common App essay. And that essay was definitely harder to write because I remember at one point I was focusing too much on the conversation and too much on the topic of conversation, the topic of happiness. So I really had to like revise and make sure that I'm focusing on what that shows about me. Yeah, so that's definitely also something to be aware of when you're writing your essays. Like, you can write about, and I say this later in the presentation on one of the slides, but you can write about literally anything you want, but as long as you're able to tie it back into who you are and focus more about whatever that thing shows about you, like that's really the most important part. Yeah, next slide, please. Cool, yeah, so not too many people looked over my essays. I have like maybe my counselor, my mom, a friend or two, oh my God, I'm losing my voice, a friend or two. Yeah, I'd say don't have too many people look over it. Or, I mean, you could have a lot of people look over it, but just really make sure that you're being picky with what suggestions you take and like what comments you're really like utilizing, only because you want to make sure that your essay is always in your own voice and that you're not taking too much from a lot of people, and then your essay doesn't really become like yours anymore. So really be careful with that. The simplest thing is just not have too many people look over it, but if you want to have a lot of people look over it, just be very critical with what advice you're taking. And then I said, don't be like me. I submitted most of my important applications on the exact due dates or the day before, and it worked out for me, but it is really stressful, so please don't do that. try to get it done a little bit earlier. Yeah. And then tips and advice. So I'm actually going to read an essay first before I get into the tips, because I feel like it will help me explain the tips more. So the essay that I'm going to read, so I know y'all have like a lot of trouble, and I had a lot of trouble with like why college supplements, so I decided that I should just read one of those out loud, one that worked for me. And it's the Columbia one. So it says, please tell us what you value most about Columbia and why. So I'm going to read that supplement out loud. Whenever someone asks me what I know about Columbia, I think about the swimming test requirement. Odd, right? Out of the numerous things I've learned about Columbia from taking several tours, the swim test is the first thing that comes to mind. And then my mind flashes the fabulous underground Dodge Fitness Center before my eyes. I remember hearing a tour guide flaunt the test as if it was a part of Columbia's name. Columbia University, the university that requires you to swim. Of course, since I can't swim, hearing this test scared me to the core. No pun intended. I can't get a Columbia degree if I drown, I thought to myself. But after many years, I finally understand why this swim test seemed so essential to Columbia's culture. The daunting swim test forces people out of their comfort zone. It requires people who don't know how to swim to feel temporary discomfort in order to reward you with a life-saving skill. But the swim test is only one example of how Columbia catapults you into helping yourself, guiding you to be the person you want to become. Columbia's core curriculum pushes you to envision the academic world. Taking classes that might not appeal to you can spark a new major, a new pathway, a new love. As an undecided student, I'm extremely open to new learning experiences across various disciplines. Being stretched into different interests at the same time as my peers is what I admire the most about Columbia's educational experience. Because the place where I'm challenged and encouraged to do things I can't even picture me doing is a place for me. So I can't wait to ace that required swim test, no matter how badly I fear drowning. Okay, so that was my Why Columbia supplement, and it got me in, I think. Like, it worked. So I'm just going to go right into the tips right from that. But yeah, like, one, get creative. Like, specifically for Why Columbia, Why college supplements, like, admissions officers read so many essays, and they have like a time crunch, so it's just best to captivate them in any way that you can. So for me, I think I thought about something really, really specific, right? Like oh, thank you, chat. Y'all are so nice. But think about something really, really specific and captivating, or something that kind of led you to choose that school, right? So for Columbia, I just couldn't stop thinking about a swim test requirement, which is so silly, but literally that's the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about whenever I thought about Columbia for some reason. So I decided to take that and sort of use it to expand outwards to sort of answer the prompt. And my pipe is making noise, so please ignore that. And then, for example, for U Chicago, right? My Why U Chicago supplement. I wrote about YouTube videos, like very interesting YouTube videos that led me to choose U Chicago. So yeah, so think about something very specific can we see your birds? Think about something very specific and captivating. Use dialogue, use an interesting idea, and then expand to make sure that you answer the prompt. Something that I wish I knew was do your most creative supplement first. So, for example, U Chicago was my most creative supplement with the extended essay. I wrote a story about Dr. Seuss, and I know it's just I'm really creative, but I wrote about Dr. Seuss and how. Sorry, the pipe is really disturbing me. I wrote about Dr. Seuss and how it was a different interdimensional U Chicago campus that I went to, and everyone was walking in headstands, and that supplement worked. So doing that cup creative supplements first, right? It helps you like create creative juices and helps it get floating. So while you're doing your other supplements, you still have that energy going off. And then lastly, for great creative, I'll say show not tell, which is a very like common phrase whenever you're writing supplements or any other essay, like show not tell. But I generally think it's a really important thing. Really make sure that you're not just telling the admissions officer about yourself. Really make sure you're exemplifying that with an anecdote, with something else. So yeah, definitely do that. So that's get creative. And then 2, it isn't about what you write, it's how you write it. I mentioned this beforehand. You can literally write about anything you want. Just make sure that it answers the prompt and that it shows who you are as a person, meaning like your values, your lesson, your voice. So please like keep that in mind, because technically whenever you're writing about a specific topic, like let's say you're writing about glasses or something, you're not really writing about glasses, you're writing about who you are in relation to those glasses, right? And that's mostly for like your personal statement and things like that. You can always use different topics to convey more about who you are and get creative with it. Number 3, if you're writing about a challenge, emphasize the growth. So this is mostly for my Questbridge essay. But I think a lot of people tend to write about challenges and stuff like that in their Common App and in their personal statement. Definitely try not to focus too much on the challenge. Obviously, that's important for contextualizing who you are as a person, and just the goal of the essay is to show that possibly you're a more resilient person or someone who can overcome things like that. But emphasizing the growth is really important, because it's about who you are, right? Like the essay is about what you learned from the challenge, what you took away, and really make sure you emphasize that part of it, because that's what the admissions officer really wants to see. They want to see how this challenge impacted you in a way that is amazing and shaping who you are. So definitely like emphasize the growth part about challenge essays. Next slide. And then 3, delegate space in your application to different things that show who you are. So this is basically just me saying to utilize all of the space on your application really wisely. I'd say don't really talk too much about extracurriculars and essays. I feel like this is possibly a very controversial statement, only because a lot of people do write about extracurriculars and essays. But I think generally you don't want to repeat yourself in the application unless it's meaningful repeating, in the sense that like in your essays don't write about an extracurricular that's like verbatim of what you literally said in the activity section. If you're going to bring in an extracurricular, try to make it show something new about yourself. So make sure to always use your application space wisely. I really had different essays show different things about who I am as a person. And then 4, read, revise, break, repeat. So this is basically just me saying to give yourself space to sit with your work, right? Like, try not to save things to last minute so that you're just writing it, revising, and then sending it in. Try to read, revise, maybe sleep on it, right? That's what I do. I might sleep, wake up, and then look at it again and then revise it. And it just really helps to like catch new things with like a new pair of eyes. And then lastly, my last tip is to have fun with it and trust yourself. I feel like not a lot of people say this either, to have fun with your supplements, especially since it's like stressful. But like I definitely say try to have fun and like write creatively and write things that you actually really love and that you're passionate about, because you write better when you actually like and love what you're writing. And the admissions officer will probably like it better too if it's like something very passionate and genuine about yourself. And honestly, like as long as you love the essays that you put in and that you submit, it doesn't really matter what result you get at the end, like what your admissions decision is, because you know that you wrote the best essay that you could and that you love your essay. So yeah, and that's basically it, I think. And that's like my contact information if you have any other questions or anything. That's my email, that's my Instagram. And I also have a YouTube channel that I recently started, kind of. So you can just search Jennora, slight plug. But yes, I'm trying to add more college content on there. So yeah, that's basically it. And sorry about my pipe and my birds.
Okay, I guess now it's time for any questions that our audience might have. We actually gathered questions from the registration form, and a lot of people have asked how to make your application stand out even though you don't have any like startups or nonprofits.
I guess I can take a stab at this one. That's okay. So I didn't have any startups and nonprofits in my profile. But I think it's important to keep in mind that universities don't always want people with startups and nonprofits. They want diversity, and like that's ultimately what they're aiming for. Like I've met a lot of people at Georgetown who do have startups and nonprofits, but I've also met a lot of people who haven't done that too, and I would say the majority of people that I've met haven't done that. Um, like, personally, I didn't have any of those things, but I tried to make myself a very, like, I would say niche applicant instead. So I would pick, I think, 2 or 3 specific themes in my application. So for me, it was like English, education, music, and I just kind of tied them together and made them really saturated in my application. So I would say, you don't need a startup or a nonprofit to have your application stand out. You just need it to become memorable, and you just need to work on how to make it memorable. So yeah, that would be my answer for that question.
Yeah, that's
Can I? Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah, no, you can go.
No, I thought, okay. So I was gonna say also this whole culture we have right now of kids feeling like they have, because like the bar is so, I guess like it keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and kids feel like they have to do more and more and more and have to start a whole like organization by the time they're like 12 in order to like get into Harvard or whatever. I don't know. I think it's like very toxic for many reasons. For like, first of all, because like it kind of like um takes away from the point of actually doing work like that. Like if you are actually going to be um starting up a nonprofit, or like starting or like working towards a certain goal with like community work or something, it should not be because of a college application. And I've like been guilty of all. Oh god, the power just went out here. What the heck? Okay. So I think the Wi-Fi is gonna have to, okay, anyways, so yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna end it because I think the Wi-Fi is going out right now. So
Thank you for the responses. So we have another question about what are the don't do's for essays?
This question is kind of difficult, honestly, because I feel like there's not, like, I'm a stronger believer in that, like, you can make like any essay work, I think. Like you can like there's no like as long as you're being super specific and connecting it to yourself and actually answering the prompt, then like everything's a do, right? But like I guess the don't would be just like try not to make things too broad, or like if an essay is too broad or an essay just doesn't talk about yourself whatsoever and it's your personal statement, or like there are some essays that I've read that like might talk about just family and kind of like they the focus is only on family and not about who they are, or it's only about like explaining who this one person is but not really explaining how that person has impacted them. So I guess like those kinds of essays might be like don'ts, because like you really want to make sure that you're always conveying who you are through that essay. But other than that, I feel like you can write about whatever topic you want, and you can basically do whatever you want with an essay as long as you are always answering the prompt and you're not saying something like wildly offensive or something like that.
I think it's also. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Hannah, you can go first. It's fine.
Okay, I was gonna say, I've read a couple. So this is also like kind of a thing. Like, if anyone wants to check this out, so there's like this startup thingy. It's like called College Process Prep, and so it's just a bunch of like college students who are looking over, like anyone who wants to like send over essays or anything. So check that out if you want to. But I've been looking over a couple of essays, and I noticed that a lot of people, when they're like trying to talk about like whatever struggle that has shaped them, or like trying to talk about a specific event or something that has happened, a lot of the times people just like go into like sequential mode, and they just kind of like, it sounds like they're just like listing off events. And I think it's really important to try to like keep your voice and like and how it has impacted you present throughout the entire essay. You don't want it to ever sound like you're just listing off like events. It always has to sound like something that like pretty much could only be coming out of your mouth, I think.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about, and this might not apply to everyone here, but if you're applying to universities in multiple countries, I would say don't treat every country's essay, like the essay that you have to write for their university, don't treat it the same way. Like the UK personal statement is very, very much different from the US's personal essay, and for Canada, it's also different. So don't really take the same approach. Like maybe don't use the same essays for across different countries. You might be able to do that for the US, but I generally don't recommend doing that for different countries. So yeah.
Okay, so we have another question about how do you overcome your writer's block when you were writing your essays?
I mean, something that I did was I tried to make my writing experience as comfortable as I could. So for example, again, like try not to like save your supplements for last minute. I was doing them during like Christmas break, which probably shouldn't do that. But yeah, so I had like the Christmas tree set up, and there was like lights, and it was all cozy, and I had like a blanket on the floor, and then I wrote all of my supplements like in my journal in like a tiny little book, and I hand wrote them. And that really helped me with writer's block because I feel like I just put myself in the most comfortable and cozy situation, and I was able to write things that felt super authentic.
I think for me, just looking back at some of my like maybe like my favorite quotes in books or stuff, like I looked back on like pieces of writing that inspired me, and I went from there.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions that we have,
Questions?
and we can,
Oh,
if
sorry.
you want, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I think my internet is just like terrible right now. But yeah, I'm just gonna quickly say, uh, I just kind of used like writing exercises for myself. Like, I would just list a bunch of questions as if I was interviewing myself or like I was getting to know myself. And those questions could just range from being serious to borderline ridiculous. And then I just start writing anything related to that question, even if it's like literally telling my entire life story or just going on a tangent. I mean, like I said, like brainstorming is 90% of the process. Like, don't filter out ideas too soon. Somewhere along that, in that word barf, you might end up writing a sentence that sounds like the perfect first sentence for your essay.
Okay, yeah. So we are actually running over time, and if anyone has to go, you can go, and thank you for joining this panel. And if you have live questions, we can take them and you can put them in the chat. So yeah, thank you very much for coming if you have to go. If you want to ask questions, you can stay in the panel and we can continue. If you have questions, you can put it in the chat. Yes, we are going to send out an email with the link to our recording at the end of today.
Are we allowed to unmute and ask a question by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, by the way, all of these are so helpful, actually. I wanted to ask, like, how well do you handle incorporating controversial topics into your writing? Like, how do you overcome how colleges may perceive that, and is that a factor into the way you write and the way you word all of your things? And how would you approach a controversial topic, and if you were to at all, and if you weren't going to, then how would you still get like the how would you still get like a strong message across? Hopefully I worded that correctly, but if you wanted to maybe elaborate on an aspect of that question, thanks.
I actually thought about this a lot when I was writing or starting to write my essay. But I think like what I came up with is that usually the most controversial topics, right, the ones that we're actually worried of bringing up, are the ones that we're most passionate about. And I think that if the college that I were to apply to, like, or the person that's reading my application decides not to accept me based off of like me expressing something that I'm passionate about, like I'm so passionate about it that even like knowing that this could like affect my chances of getting in, I wanted to put it in because it's such a big part of me. Like I honestly would not want to be a part of that kind of environment. So I think that it's like you just need to trust yourself and trust that if it's important enough to you, that you want to bring it up, that you should allow yourself the space to do that, because that's what they're asking of you. They're asking for honesty. And if they're not ready for what that entails, then screw them, I guess.
Yeah, so there's another question about how did you deal with not feeling enough during the college application process? And it has been a struggle for many people.
Yeah, I think I can answer this one. So definitely, yeah, I always felt like super insecure when I was doing my college applications, even when I finished with them and I was like, doing my interviews, because all my interviewers were like they'd either gone to like a prep school, or they were basically domestic applicants, or they just had like a more affluent upbringing. Definitely at times I felt like I couldn't measure up to the standard that, or I guess like the type of people that the schools I was applying to were looking for. Um, and I was just thinking about like how my achievements weren't, that great, and that one of them would just kind of bring my entire application down. But I think the way I dealt with it was that, I wasn't focusing on being better, but I was focusing on being unique, right? Like I put my mistakes out there in my essay. So I honestly, I made it like I was honest about not feeling enough about myself in my college application. And I think that was what made it memorable, probably because, you always have this culture of like overachieving, or just constantly having to pretend that you're okay, but really, mentally you're not okay. And sometimes it's fine, but you kind of think about how you're going to grow from this, and I think it encourages you to kind of push forward. I would say that really prioritize mental health when you're doing college applications. Senior year is really a difficult time. 10 out of 10, I would not do it again. um, so remember to prioritize your mental health. Talk to people if you need to, take breaks if you need to. um, yeah, like someone else said before, um, don't exploit yourself for the sake of your college application.
Yes, completely agree. I also just wanted to say that like college admissions officers are looking for human beings, right? Like stats and all the numbers and all the extracurriculars and all the just the multitudes of things that like you may think that like can make a person like really stand out, or like they're really looking for finding the human being in your application. And if they can't find that, and if they can just find high numbers and high GPAs, then like they'd rather accept someone else, right? So I think just know that your best is enough, and that as long as you're putting your all into your applications and you're putting yourself into your application, then you're going to be amazing. Like, you're going to be fine.
Okay, if we don't have more questions, we can end it here. And it was a pleasure to have all of our panelists today. I just want to say, like, we enriched a lot from the workshop, and I'm sure that everyone gained a lot of tips. And yeah, just want to say thank you all for coming here. And if you have more questions, we will send out the contact of our panelists at the end. You can contact them for more questions and more advice later. And yeah, thank you again for coming here. Bye.